The animal shelter stood proudly at the end of a quiet street, surrounded by trees that danced gently in the wind. Bright banners hung above the entrance, proclaiming the shelter's mission: to rescue, care for, and find loving homes for abandoned and neglected animals. Inside, the air was filled with a mixture of hopeful barks and soft mews, creating a chorus of sounds that echoed the purpose of the place. Every day, dedicated volunteers poured their hearts into their work. They came from all walks of life: students, retired folks, and families, all united by a common love for animals. Each volunteer knew that their contributions, no matter how small, could make a significant difference in the lives of these furry friends. They cleaned cages, provided food and water, and most importantly, offered companionship and love to each animal. In one corner of the shelter, a group of volunteers gathered for a briefing. The air buzzed with excitement as they readied themselves for another busy day. Among them was Sarah, a passionate volunteer with bright eyes full of compassion and determination. She had been volunteering at the shelter for over a year, spending countless hours getting to know each dog and cat. Sarah believed in the power of second chances and felt that every animal deserved a loving home. However, the atmosphere shifted when the shelter manager delivered the news that shook everyone to their core. A sweet-natured dog named Max had been brought in just days earlier and was scheduled for euthanasia that coming Monday morning. The volunteers listened in disbelief as the manager explained that there simply wasn't enough space or resources to keep him longer. "Please, can we just have until Monday?" Sarah exclaimed, her heart racing at the thought of losing Max. She looked around at her fellow volunteers. Some nodded in agreement while others appeared dejected. "I know we can help him. Let us show him love over the weekend." The manager hesitated but eventually agreed to give Sarah and the other volunteers a chance. As the meeting ended, Sarah felt a surge of hope mixed with anxiety about what lay ahead. She had made it her mission to learn about this dog and prove he was worth saving. As she approached Max's kennel, she was struck by how sad he looked. His fur was matted, and his big brown eyes seemed to hold a world of pain. Yet despite his rough appearance, there was something about him that tugged at her heartstrings. She knelt down, offering her hand through the bars of his cage, and watched as he cautiously approached her. "Hi there, buddy," she whispered softly. "I'm going to spend some time with you this weekend." Little did she know that this weekend would be a turning point. Not just for Max, but for everyone at the shelter. The days ahead promised to be filled with challenges and revelations, as Sarah embarked on her journey to discover what made Max so special. It was a race against time filled with hope, determination, and love that would change everything in the shelter forever. Among the dedicated volunteers at the shelter, Sarah stood out with her bright smile and unwavering energy. From the moment she first walked through the shelter doors, she knew she had found her calling. She had a special bond with animals that went beyond simple care. It was a connection built on love, empathy, and mutual trust. With every wagging tail and gentle purr, Sarah felt a piece of her heart grow fuller. Sarah was in her mid-20s and had always loved animals. Growing up, her family had pets, and she often volunteered at local animal rescue events. After moving to the area for college, she discovered the shelter and immediately signed up to help. Now, a year later, she spent every free moment there, cleaning kennels, feeding the animals, or just sitting quietly with them to provide comfort. As Sarah walked through the shelter corridors, each dog seemed to recognize her presence. Their excited barks filled the air as they jumped up to greet her. She knelt down to scratch behind the ears of a lively beagle named Benny, while a golden retriever named Daisy rested her head on Sarah's knee, soaking in all the love and attention she could offer. "Hey there, sweet girl," Sarah cooed softly to Daisy. "You're such a good dog. I promise you'll find your forever home soon." Her gentle voice made Daisy wag her tail enthusiastically in response. But it was not only physical care that Sarah provided. She believed in building emotional connections as well. She understood that many of these animals came from difficult backgrounds and needed patience and kindness to heal. When walking through the shelter's yard with a timid dog named Charlie, Sarah would take her time, letting him sniff around and explore at his own pace. This simple act of giving him space built Charlie's confidence over time. Sarah's passion for helping animals extended beyond just routine tasks. She often advocated for dogs that might be overlooked due to their age or special needs. She spoke about them during volunteer meetings and encouraged others to see their potential for love and companionship. It was this same passion that drove her to plead for Max's life when he faced imminent euthanasia. That fateful day when Sarah heard about Max left an imprint on her heart. She felt an immediate connection with him despite not having spent much time with him yet. As soon as she saw his sad eyes peering through the kennel bars, something clicked inside her. She sensed that there was more to his story than met the eye. "I have to save him," Sarah thought resolutely after their first encounter. "He deserves a chance." With determination coursing through her veins, she knew that this weekend would be a pivotal moment. Not just for Max, but also for herself as a dedicated volunteer fighting against time for one more second chance. As Sarah prepared mentally for what lay ahead over those next 48 hours, excitement bubbled within her. Not only did she want to discover what made Max special, she wanted everyone at the shelter to see it too, especially those who held the power to change his fate forever. The mood in the shelter shifted dramatically when Sarah received the distressing news. It was early Friday morning, and the volunteers had gathered for their usual briefing. As they sat in a circle near the donation wall, filled with photos of past rescues, the shelter manager entered with a serious expression that sent chills through the room. "Everyone, I need your attention," the manager began. "We have an urgent matter to address. A new dog named Max was brought in just a few days ago, and he's scheduled for euthanasia on Monday morning." A heavy silence fell over the group as disbelief poured into their hearts. Max, a sweet-faced dog with expressive eyes, had barely begun to settle into his new environment before facing such a grim fate. Sarah felt her stomach drop at the news. She hardly knew him yet, but sensed there was so much potential within him. As the manager explained that lack of space and resources left them no choice, Sarah's heart raced with determination. "Please, can we just have until Monday?" she pleaded. The urgency in her voice echoed through the room as some volunteers nodded solemnly, while others looked on with sadness etched on their faces. "Let me show him love this weekend," she added desperately. After a moment of contemplation, the manager hesitated but eventually granted her request. "All right, but you know this is just buying time," he said gently. Sarah understood that very well. It felt like playing with fire against an unseen clock. Fighting back tears of desperation, Sarah knew she had to act fast. As soon as the meeting ended, adrenaline surged through her veins. She imagined what could happen while she fought for Max's life over the weekend. The possibility of saving him grew more real with each decision she made. The sight of Max's kennel haunted her thoughts throughout the day's tasks at the shelter. Every wagging tail and playful bark seemed to amplify her concern for him. Time was ticking away too quickly. Later that afternoon, when she finally had a free moment, Sarah rushed to his enclosure. She peered through the bars and found Max curled up in a corner, his sad brown eyes gazing back at her with an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. He looked cautious yet hopeful for someone to reach out to him. "Hey there," Sarah whispered softly, crouching down so he could see her more clearly. "You're going to be okay. We're going to make it through this weekend together." As their eyes met, she felt an instant connection sparking between them, a shared understanding that they both needed each other. With renewed hope surging within her heart, Sarah spent time getting acquainted with Max that evening. Every scratch behind his ears sparked joy in her heart, as she promised him that he wouldn't face this alone. Their bond began to strengthen during those quiet moments they shared together. Yet deep inside her mind lingered the cold reality. Without dedicated effort and perhaps even a miracle over these next 2 days, Max might still meet a tragic end come Monday morning. But Sarah was ready to fight for him, to advocate fiercely, to change not only his destiny but possibly even shape how the shelter viewed pets like Max moving forward. Her commitment had been ignited by love and fueled by determination. She refused to give up on him without an earnest battle for his life. As the morning meeting concluded, Sarah felt a swirl of urgency and desperation within her. This was not just another typical day at the shelter. It was a race against time. She had to act fast for Max's heart pounding. She approached the manager's office. her mind racing with thoughts on how to convince him that Max deserved more time. "Excuse me, can I talk to you for a moment?" she said, her voice steady despite the anxious flutter in her stomach. The manager looked up from his paperwork with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind?" Taking a deep breath, she gathered her thoughts. "I just heard about Max, and I'm really worried about him. Please, can we keep him here over the weekend? I feel like if we give him just 2 more days, I can show everyone how special he is." The manager frowned slightly, glancing at the papers stacked on his desk. "Sarah, you know we have limited space and resources right now. Euthanasia isn't an easy decision, but sometimes it's necessary to make room for more animals that need help." "I understand," she replied quickly, trying to mask the tremble in her voice. "But what if we can find someone to adopt him? I've seen so many dogs come through this shelter with great potential. Max might just need a little extra time and love to shine." As she spoke, Sarah recalled the countless stories of other dogs finding homes after being given that same chance. How love brought out their true selves when they were at their lowest points. She gestured passionately as she continued, "What if he's one of those dogs? He deserves that opportunity. Can't we just take a risk this weekend?" The manager held her gaze, weighing her words carefully. "You really believe you can find him a home in 2 days?" he asked skeptically. "Yes, I know I can make a difference," Sarah insisted. Her heart raced as she felt hope rising inside her like a flame igniting in the dark. "Let me share his story online and connect with my friends. I'll even stay late and work extra shifts if needed." For a moment, silence hung heavily between them as the manager considered her plea. Finally, he sighed with resignation and nodded slowly. "All right, Sarah, you can have until Monday morning with him, but this is your responsibility." "Thank you. Thank you so much," she exclaimed as relief washed over her like cool rain on a hot day. The weight on her shoulders had lifted slightly. Now it was up to her to make good on this chance. As she left his office, determination bubbled up inside her anew. This opportunity sparked an intense drive within Sarah. Not only did she want to save Max's life, but she also wanted to demonstrate that every dog at the shelter deserved a fighting chance. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of preparation as Sarah began mapping out her plan for the weekend ahead. She would spend every moment needed with Max to build their bond, while also reaching out to potential adopters through social media and local contacts. There was no time for hesitation. Every hour mattered in this desperate mission to transform Max's fate before Monday morning arrived. As dusk settled over the shelter that evening, Sarah felt that familiar spark ignite within her. She was ready to fight for Max and show everyone that love could change everything. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow through the shelter's windows, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension as she approached Max's kennel. The moment she laid eyes on him, her heart ached at his appearance. He was a medium-sized dog with shaggy fur that had seen better days, matted in places and dull in color. His once bright coat now seemed to blend into the faded background of his kennel, as if he had lost his spark entirely. Max sat curled up in the corner, his body language speaking volumes about his past experiences. He looked wary yet hopeful, his big brown eyes reflecting a world of uncertainty mixed with faint trust. As Sarah knelt down to get a closer look, she noticed that he flinched slightly at sudden movements, revealing an underlying fear that tugged at her heartstrings. "Hey there," she whispered softly, extending her hand cautiously through the bars of the kennel. Max's ears perked up at the sound of her voice, but he remained still for a moment longer, as if deciding whether or not to approach her. The way he tilted his head intrigued her. There was an innocence about him that made her want to reach out and comfort him. "It's okay," she assured him gently. "I'm here to help you." Her fingers brushed against his fur when he finally stepped forward hesitantly, and she could feel the tension in his body begin to dissipate ever so slightly. But doubt crept into her mind. Would he ever fully trust her? Was there still enough time to show him love before it was too late? As she spent those first few moments with him, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging worry that this gentle soul had been through too much already. His cautious demeanor spoke of past trauma. Was he abandoned? Had he suffered? The thought pained her deeply. Every dog deserved to be loved and cared for rather than face a heartbreaking fate. The more she looked into Max's expressive eyes, the more convinced she became that there was a spirit waiting to break free from behind those sad walls. She imagined what it would feel like for him to romp around in a backyard, basking in warmth and affection from a loving family. But would anyone see that potential in him before the clock ran out? Feeling an overwhelming sense of urgency wash over her again, Sarah resolved to forge a bond with Max within these next precious days. She reached her hand deeper into his kennel, allowing him to sniff and explore her presence while keeping her movements slow and gentle. "You're going to get that chance," she promised quietly, hoping he could sense her sincerity. "We're going to change your story together." Each second spent with Max felt precious as they locked eyes. Sarah could see a flicker of hope shining through, yet concern still lurked around the edges of her thoughts. What if Max didn't respond well? What if her efforts weren't enough? Could they truly overcome the odds stacked against them? As the hours passed by and twilight deepened into night, Sarah grasped onto one key certainty. She wouldn't let fear dictate this weekend's outcome for Max. Instead, she would pour every ounce of love into their time together because deep down, she knew he deserved nothing less than a fighting chance at life and happiness. The weekend began with a mix of anticipation and nervousness as Sarah stepped into the shelter on Saturday morning. She headed straight to Max's kennel, her heart racing in excitement at the thought of spending time with him. As she approached, she found him lounging in his corner, looking more relaxed than when they first met. This small change filled Sarah with hope. "Good morning, Max," she said cheerfully, kneeling down to his level. He perked up slightly at the sound of her voice, his big brown eyes sparkling with curiosity. Today was the day they would start building their bond. With gentle movements, Sarah opened the kennel door, allowing Max to step out. He hesitated for a moment before inching forward, sniffing the air and exploring his surroundings. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped back, giving him space to feel comfortable. "Let's go for a walk," she suggested softly. As they walked together around the shelter grounds, Max's cautious demeanor began to fade away. He explored with newfound enthusiasm, stopping to sniff at trees and bushes along the path. Sarah smiled, feeling a warm connection growing between them. With each step, she learned more about his personality, his playful side shining through as he darted after leaves that fluttered in the breeze. After their walk, it was time for some fun. Sarah had brought along a squeaky toy, a bright yellow duck that was sure to catch his attention. At first, Max was hesitant. He eyed it suspiciously as if unsure what this new object meant. But with a little encouragement from Sarah, he eventually took a leap of faith and pounced on it, sending it squeaking across the floor. Laughter bubbled from Sarah as she watched him engage with the toy. The look of pure joy on Max's face as he chased after it revealed glimpses of his true spirit. She couldn't help but cheer him on. "You got it! Bring it back!" To her delight, he did just that, returning with the toy and dropping it at her feet as if asking for more playtime. Throughout the day, Sarah made sure to enrich their experience together by incorporating various activities. Some training sessions mixed with treats helped build trust between them. She taught him simple commands like, "sit," and "come," praising him enthusiastically every time he succeeded. His ears perked up at her praise, and soon he became more confident in responding to her. As evening fell, they settled down for some quiet time together. Sarah gently brushed Max's fur while talking to him softly about all the possibilities that lay ahead. She could feel his body relaxing under her touch, even though he had shown signs of fear earlier in their journey together. Now there was a calmness that enveloped them both. On Sunday morning, feeling optimistic about their progress, Sarah decided to take Max to a nearby park, a place where he could relish the sensation of grass beneath his paws and soak up some sunshine. It was a joyous experience watching him run freely, chasing butterflies and rolling around in patches of soft green grass. During moments like this, Sarah knew she was witnessing Max's true nature emerge, a happy dog reclaiming his joy bit by bit. With each interaction over the weekend, every walk, every game of fetch, She felt herself falling deeper for this sweet creature who had almost lost hope. As Sunday drew to a close, Sarah sat beside Max on a park bench watching the sun set against the horizon. She reflected on how far they had come in just 48 hours. She understood now that Max wasn't just another dog facing euthanasia. He was a survivor ready for love and adventure. In those precious moments together, she felt an unbreakable bond forming between them. She promised herself that they would fight for this life, and perhaps even change how others viewed dogs like Max forever. As the weekend unfolded, Sarah was pleasantly surprised by the unexpected talents and qualities Max displayed. With each new activity they engaged in, his intelligence and friendly nature began to shine brighter, emphasizing just how special he really was. During one of their afternoon sessions, Sarah decided to introduce Max to a game of fetch at the park. Armed with his favorite squeaky toy, she tossed it a short distance away, curious to see how he would respond. To her astonishment, not only did Max sprint after the toy with enthusiasm, but he also quickly learned the concept of retrieving it back to her. With each successful return, Sarah cheered for him, clapping her hands in excitement. "Good boy, Max. You're such a natural," she exclaimed, heart swelling with pride as he brought the toy back again and again. It was clear that Max had a knack for this game. His confidence grew with each fetch, and soon he was darting around, tail wagging and radiating joy, as if he was finally discovering his spirit of playfulness that had been hidden for so long. As they transitioned into training sessions, Sarah decided to teach Max some basic commands beyond sit and come. She introduced high five, demonstrating the action by raising her hand and encouraging him to tap it with his paw. With only a few tries, Max caught on quickly, understanding what was expected of him. Each time he successfully gave her a high five, she couldn't help but celebrate him with laughter and praises. "Look at you. You're so smart," Sarah exclaimed as Max eagerly offered his paw to meet hers, his eyes shining with joy. In that moment, she felt overwhelming gratitude for having this weekend together. It was transforming both their lives. Watching him flourish brought an immense sense of fulfillment. Max was not just another dog facing euthanasia. He was a learner with potential. As their bond deepened throughout the weekend, Sarah discovered another impressive quality about Max: his calm demeanor when interacting with other dogs at the park. While playing together, they encountered several friendly pooches who rushed over to investigate. Rather than displaying fear or aggression like she had feared, Max remained friendly and sociable. He greeted each dog with a wagging tail and offered playful bows as a gesture of goodwill. Sarah watched in awe as Max befriended a playful golden retriever named Bella. They rolled around in the grass, indulging in fits of play while barking happily at one another. "You're making friends already," Sarah cheered as she snapped pictures of their fun. This display of friendliness highlighted Max's warm nature and reminded Sarah that he had all the qualities needed to make him an ideal pet for someone looking for love and companionship. By Sunday afternoon, it became evident to Sarah that not only did Max possess intelligence and playfulness, but also an affectionate spirit that could melt any heart. Her confidence in his adaptability skyrocketed as they continued their activities. Each moment spent together revealed more about Max's capabilities and charming personality. As they walked back toward the shelter at sunset, Sarah felt grateful for every second they had shared. It became increasingly clear that Max deserved a home filled with love and joy, one that recognized all the amazing qualities she had uncovered over these past 2 days. In her heart, she knew they were fighting to change his fate, not just for the weekend but for a future filled with promise. As the weekend drew to a close, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose igniting within her. Her connection with Max had deepened beyond her expectations, and now it was time to share his story and gather support from other volunteers at the shelter. After all, she knew that if they came together as a team, they could work miracles for him. On Sunday afternoon, while Max rested in the shade of a tree at the park, Sarah sought out her fellow volunteers who were finishing their shifts back at the shelter. She made her way into the communal room, where several familiar faces were gathered. The air buzzed with chatter and laughter as she approached them, her heart racing with excitement to share what she had experienced over the weekend. "Hey everyone!" she called out, gathering their attention. You won't believe what an incredible weekend I've had with Max. Curiosity sparked among the volunteers as Sarah animatedly recounted her adventures with Max. The walks, his playful spirit during fetch, and how he quickly learned new commands. He's not just any dog. He's smart and so affectionate, she exclaimed with joy. Her enthusiasm was infectious as each volunteer leaned in closer, eager to hear more about this dog who was facing such uncertainty. One of the newer volunteers, Lisa, asked with interest, "What do you think he needs most to help him find a home?" Sarah reflected for a moment before answering. "We need to show others just how loving he is. We should consider organizing an event where people can come meet him." The idea resonated in the room like a spark igniting firewood. Several volunteers exchanged ideas on how best to showcase Max's charming personality. "I can set up some social media posts," offered Jack enthusiastically. "I've got a few connections that might be interested in adopting." A wave of gratefulness washed over Sarah at the generosity displayed by her fellow volunteers. This was more than just her fight. It was becoming theirs too. Encouraged by the support growing around them, another volunteer chimed in. "Let's post pictures of him playing and having fun. Everyone loves seeing dogs having a good time. It can really pull at people's hearts." The conversation flowed with renewed energy as they brainstormed potential ideas. Organizing a meet-and-greet event at the shelter where families could play with Max and see his true nature firsthand, or even creating flyers to distribute in their local community. Over the next hour, Sarah felt united with her fellow volunteers like never before. They were all coming together for one common goal: to save this sweet dog who deserved another chance. They encouraged each other's ideas and emphasized that showcasing Max's skills would highlight his potential as an adoptable pet. As she listened to their conversations filled with excitement and hope, Sarah realized this collaborative spirit extended beyond just helping one dog. It was about creating a culture of compassion throughout the shelter that empowered animals like Max, who were often overlooked. When it was time for everyone to head home after their planning session, they promised to meet again later in the week to execute their plan together. A sign of unity that reinforced Sarah's belief that change was possible. As she walked back toward Max under the setting sun, feeling energized by this collective support for him and all he represented, she knelt beside Max again and scratched behind his ears softly. "We're going to make sure you find your forever home," she whispered as he looked up at her blissfully content. In those moments surrounded by friends who shared her passion for animal welfare, Sarah felt confident that they could change not just Max's fate, but potentially pave the way for improved policies within their shelter moving forward. Together with determination and love, they were ready to fight for all deserving animals waiting for their second chances. As the sun began to set on their final day together, Sarah sat on a bench in the park, watching Max frolic in the grass. Every joyful leap and bound he made filled her heart with warmth, a stark contrast to the fear and uncertainty she had felt just days ago. The bond they had built over the weekend was undeniable. Their connection had transformed from cautious hope to burgeoning love, igniting a spark within Sarah that she hadn't anticipated. Max dashed back toward her, his fur glistening in the evening light, dropping his favorite squeaky toy at her feet. His eyes were bright with excitement, and for a moment, it felt as though he was saying thank you for believing in him. In that moment, Sarah realized just how deserving he was of life and love, the kind of life where he would never have to fear abandonment again. With every interaction they had shared, every game of fetch and every training command mastered, Sarah had witnessed his spirit come alive. It was as if Max had unraveled before her eyes, shedding layers of fear to reveal a playful and affectionate dog eager to connect with others. She couldn't help but smile at the thought of how far they had come since that first day when he had looked so sad and lost. As she scratched behind his ears, a wave of emotion washed over her. What if this wasn't just a fleeting weekend? What if it was the beginning of something truly special? They had formed not just a bond but an unbreakable partnership built on trust and understanding. The idea of him being adopted into a loving home made her heart swell with hope. Max deserved a future filled with joy and adventure. Sarah envisioned him playing in a yard, chasing after balls and rolling in the grass under a family's loving gaze. "You're going to find your forever home," she murmured softly to him, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "You deserve all the love in the world." In that moment, her fears about what might happen on Monday transformed into a steadfast determination. They had only known each other for a short time, yet it felt as though they were meant to find one another. Two souls crossing paths at just the right moment. Max's journey resonated deep within her, awakening her passion for advocacy among all animals waiting for their chance at life. As she smiled down at him, she thought about how she could do more than just save Max. She could inspire change within the shelter itself. With support from her fellow volunteers, they could reshape how animals like him were perceived. Not just as statistics, but as individuals brimming with potential waiting for someone to believe in them. Without realizing it, Sarah's heart had shifted entirely from fear to hope. She saw not just the dog before her, but the life that awaited him. A life full of companionship, joy, and unconditional love. She could feel the excitement building within her as she anticipated sharing their story with others, compelling them to see Max not just as a rescue, but as a beloved member of a future family. As they walked back to the shelter together under the twilight sky, Sarah felt empowered by the journey they had taken over just 48 hours. She knew now that this was more than just about saving one dog. It was about advocating for all marginalized animals deserving their own second chances. A mission she was ready to fight for alongside Max, who inspired her to believe that change was possible. The following morning, Sarah woke up with a strong sense of purpose and an energized heart. This was it, the day she would take action for Max and advocate for his life. Determined to ensure he found a loving forever home, she made a list of steps to reach potential adopters. First, she pulled out her phone and began crafting a heartfelt post for social media. Drawing inspiration from the successful weekend they had shared, Sarah wrote about Max's journey. From the fearful dog on the brink of euthanasia to the playful companion she had come to adore. She included pictures of him romping through the park, his fur glistening in the sunlight, capturing moments that showed his personality and warmth. "Meet Max," she titled the post, "a 2-year-old sweet soul who deserves love and adventure." With every word she typed, Sarah felt her passion and determination growing. It was time for people to see how incredible Max truly was. She shared the post across multiple platforms, including Facebook and Instagram, tagging the shelter's page to boost visibility. Before long, likes and shares began rolling in as supportive friends and fellow volunteers joined in promoting his story. Next on her list was to organize a special event at the shelter, a Meet Max Day, where families could come in, meet him, and experience his lively spirit firsthand. Sarah reached out to her fellow volunteers to help with planning. The enthusiasm already buzzing from their previous discussions drove everyone to contribute ideas. "Let's set up some games where people can interact with him," suggested Lisa, recalling how much fun Max had during fetch sessions. "I could create flyers and put them up around our neighborhood or at local pet stores," Jack chimed in eagerly. Within hours, a detailed plan started to form. They decided on holding the event next Saturday, giving them a full week to prepare. Members agreed to handle different roles. Sarah would take charge of the social media outreach while others gathered supplies like toys and treats for Max. The group then met in person at the shelter later that day to create eye-catching flyers featuring Max's photos alongside heartwarming snippets about his journey. The volunteers filled their volunteer space with camaraderie as they laughed together, while making posters that would help spark interest in Max's adoption. In an unexpected twist of fate, as they were crafting flyers and brainstorming promotional strategies, Sarah received a private message from someone interested in adopting a dog. They wanted more information about Max after seeing her social media post. Excitement bubbled through her as she realized their collaborative efforts were beginning to pay off. To keep visitors engaged during Meet Max Day, they planned additional activities such as training sessions where attendees could learn more about responsible dog ownership with practical hands-on examples using Max's newfound skills. Not only would this help showcase his intelligence and friendly demeanor, but also educate potential adopters about how to provide loving care for pets. With each step taken toward advocating for Max's life, Sarah felt empowered by this team effort. It was no longer just her mission, but one shared passionately by all those around her. As the days progressed leading up to Saturday's event, Sarah felt her hopes steadily rising along with excitement about changing not just Max's fate but also improving how animals like him were cared for within the shelter. She firmly believed that if they succeeded in finding Max a loving home, it could influence an even greater movement toward compassion and understanding for all shelter animals in need. With determination fueling her actions every day leading to that upcoming Saturday adventure, Sarah was ready, not only for Max's future but also for continued efforts that advocated kindness toward all animals waiting patiently for their own chance at love. As the sun dipped below the horizon on Sunday evening, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sarah found herself sitting quietly with Max in a cozy corner of the shelter. The air was thick with emotion as the reality of the impending Monday morning loomed over them like a dark cloud. All day, she had felt the surge of excitement and hope building within her, but now that feeling was mingled with a palpable sense of anxiety. Max lay beside her, his warm body pressed against her leg. She stroked his fur gently, reflecting on how much they had shared over the weekend. The playful moments, newfound skills, and their deepening bond. Yet the thought that he might not have a future filled with love and joy weighed heavily on her heart. What if all their efforts were in vain? The fear of losing him gripped her tightly. It felt almost unbearable. Why does it have to be this way? She whispered into the night air, wishing for just a little more time for Max to show the world who he truly was. A loving companion just waiting to belong. She looked down at him as he gazed back with those trusting brown eyes and felt a wave of determination wash over her again. He deserved every chance to find happiness. As they settled into a relaxed moment together, Sarah pulled out her phone and began scrolling through the posts she had shared earlier that day. She saw messages from friends and fellow volunteers expressing their support for Max's cause. Each comment brought a flicker of hope to her heart. Others believed in him too. They were rallying behind him as if he were one of their own, their enthusiasm reigniting her resolve. In those quiet moments under the shelter's softly flickering lights, Sarah made a promise to Max. "I won't stop fighting for you." She envisioned what it would be like for someone out there to read his story and see his potential, to give him a loving home where he could thrive. But as much as she wanted to change his fate alone, she realized it would take a community rallying together. Excitement began to bloom alongside her anxiety as thoughts raced through her mind. Ideas for how they could promote Max's event better or capture even more attention for him before tomorrow arrived. Maybe they could share testimonials from other volunteers about his transformation or create poster boards that highlighted all he had learned over just 48 hours. Before long, she realized that while Monday morning carried uncertainty, it also carried potential. Each moment offered an opportunity for change. It dawned on her how being proactive was critical. Not just waiting passively but actively working to advocate for Max's life. As twilight gave way to darkness, Sarah made another vow. Not only would she fight for Max's life until the very last moment, but she would use this experience to inspire others as well. If they managed to save one dog from an untimely fate, perhaps they could encourage even more people in their community to adopt animals in need and see beyond their circumstances. The tension in her chest eased slightly by envisioning possibilities as hope replaced doubt within her heart. As Sarah moved closer to Max, she softly whispered tales of love and adventure into his eager ears, taking comfort knowing they would stand together through whatever challenge awaited them come dawn. Underneath that whispered promise lay an unwavering commitment. Together, they would face Monday morning head-on, with courage and compassion, and work tirelessly to change not just Max's life, but pave a path toward lasting change for all animals seeking love within the shelter walls. Monday morning arrived with the sun rising steadily, casting a soft glow through the windows of the shelter. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as she walked through the familiar halls, her heart racing at what awaited her. It was the moment of truth for Max, and despite all their efforts over the weekend to showcase his qualities, uncertainty lingered in the air. After arriving, Sarah immediately sought out the manager to discuss Max's fate. She arrived at the office just as other staff members gathered for a morning meeting. The atmosphere felt heavy with anticipation. Sarah could feel her stomach knotting as she waited for a chance to speak up. "Could we gather around for a moment?" she said nervously, glancing around the room. Curiosity bloomed in the eyes of her fellow volunteers and staff members. They turned to her expectantly, allowing Sarah to see that many shared her passion for advocating for dogs like Max. With determination fueling her words, she spoke passionately about Max's journey, how he had transformed from a fearful soul into a playful companion within just 48 hours. She described their cherished moments together, his joy during playtime, his willingness to learn new commands, and his ability to connect with others both human and canine. Max is not just another dog waiting for euthanasia, she concluded firmly. He is capable of giving love and receiving it in return. As she finished speaking, there was a moment of silence in which only the hum of fluorescent lights could be heard. Then, one of the shelter staff members quietly voiced what many were feeling. "We've seen changes in so many animals. He might be one we shouldn't give up on." A wave of understanding washed over them as another staff member spoke up about how different Max seemed after spending time with Sarah, how his fear had begun to dissolve under her gentle care. Murmurs of agreement spread around the room as more people chimed in, recalling their own observations from interacting with him or seeing him play. Motivated by the shift in mood, Sarah proposed they keep Max another week, give him time for families to come meet him during Meet Max Day, and allow him multiple opportunities to showcase his affectionate nature. The suggestion sparked an enthusiasm that filled the room. It felt like hope had suddenly taken root among them all. One by one, additional voices joined in support of postponing Max's euthanasia. Like little embers igniting into flames, they rallied together around this sweet dog who had become more than just a statistic in a busy shelter. The energy began building as conversations shifted toward how they could maximize exposure for Max during this time, not just via social media but also encouraging visitors throughout the coming days leading to Saturday's big event. Finally, after gathering enough ideas and understanding from each member present, and visibly moved by how invested everyone had become, the shelter manager looked at Sarah with newfound pride and approval. "All right then," he stated decisively. "Let's give Max one more week." Cheers erupted in response, each person elated by the news that their collective efforts had made an impact. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. It was a decision fueled by compassion and dedication rather than desperation, a reflection of everything they had worked toward over these past days. As everyone dispersed back to their tasks, excitement fanned out like wildfire among volunteers who buzzed with ideas on promoting Max's story even further. Sarah knelt beside Max again as he basked in affection from numerous volunteers who approached him eagerly with treats and toys. In that fleeting moment together underneath sunny shelter lights filled with laughter and eagerness for positive change ahead, hope surged within her soul. Max would have another chance now because people believed he could be loved just as he deserved. It marked an important turning point, not just for Max but for everyone involved. A shared commitment toward saving lives and bettering futures altogether among friends dedicated fully to animal welfare. In the days following the decision to give Max another week, a palpable shift began to ripple through the shelter. The energy that had once felt heavy with uncertainty transformed into a vibrant atmosphere filled with optimism and renewed commitment to animal welfare. Sarah, along with her fellow volunteers, felt inspired by their collective efforts and the impact they had made for Max. As they prepared for Meet Max Day, excitement buzzed in the air. However, it wasn't just about showcasing one dog. It became clear that this event symbolized something much larger. Conversations among staff members grew more focused on how to improve long-term care for all animals in need, especially those who were often overlooked or scheduled for euthanasia due to limited resources. During a follow-up meeting, the shelter manager opened the floor for discussion on policy changes that could positively affect the lives of animals like Max. Sarah took this opportunity to advocate for more comprehensive assessment periods before making decisions about euthanasia. She spoke passionately about how every animal deserved a chance, not just a brief moment to impress potential adopters, but enough time to show their true selves in a loving environment. Max is proof that with just a little patience and support, these dogs can transform, she said, recalling how he had blossomed over the weekend. Imagine what we could do if we extended this grace to other animals too. We could save so many lives. Her words resonated deeply within the room as other volunteers and staff members began to share their own experiences with animals who had been given up too quickly. They discussed how some dogs took longer to adjust and needed time to build trust before showing their true colors. This conversation sparked an idea. What if they created a foster care program that would allow volunteers to take animals home temporarily? This way, the dogs would have a chance to thrive in a home environment while waiting for adoption rather than being confined to kennels. The discussion evolved into actionable plans. They proposed extending the time frame allowed for each dog's evaluation and establishing foster care networks that would involve local families willing to provide temporary homes. This approach would not only help alleviate overcrowding in the shelter, but also offer animals like Max a better shot at finding permanent homes where they could flourish. As plans gained traction, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of hope wash over her again. The realization that their efforts could lead not only to saving Max but potentially changing policies across the entire shelter invigorated her spirit. It was clear that this was not just about one dog but about creating an environment where all animals could be seen and valued as deserving of life and love. By the time Meet Max Day arrived, there was an air of celebration throughout the shelter. Families arrived eager to meet him, intrigued by his stories shared across social media platforms. As people interacted with Max, playing fetch and watching him show off his newfound skills, they began connecting not just with him but also with what he represented: hope, resilience, and the power of community advocacy. As Sarah watched families engage with Max, her heart swelled with pride and gratitude for everyone who had joined in this mission. She knew this was just the beginning. They were laying down the groundwork for long-lasting change within their shelter, a change that would ensure every animal received ample opportunities for love and happiness. In those moments filled with joy and laughter, Sarah felt empowered knowing that together, they were not only saving individual lives but also shaping a brighter future for countless animals waiting patiently for their second chances. As she knelt beside Max amid all the excitement, she whispered promises of advocacy and compassion into his ear, grateful for how far they had come together, and excited for what was yet to unfold. As the dust settled after Meet Max Day, Sarah found herself reflecting on the whirlwind of events that had transpired over the past week. The joy and excitement of seeing families engage with Max, the loving glances exchanged between potential adopters, and this once-forgotten dog, filled her heart with pride. But it was not just about Max. It was about how this experience had reshaped the shelter's approach to animal care and policy. Sarah sat quietly in a corner of the volunteer room, surrounded by her fellow volunteers, who were busy sorting through notes and feedback from the event. Laughter echoed around her, but amid the chatter, she felt a profound sense of gratitude swell within her. It dawned on her that their collective efforts had sparked a significant change in not only how they viewed individual animals but also how they could redefine their mission as an organization. Reflecting on Max's journey, Sarah realized how each moment had contributed to a larger understanding of compassion in animal rescue. If we can make such a difference for one dog, she mused aloud, drawing attention from her peers, imagine how many more lives we can save if we extend our timeframes for evaluation before making decisions about euthanasia. Her words resonated deeply among those gathered. One volunteer, Lisa, nodded vigorously and added, "And think about fostering. Giving dogs like Max a home environment where they can truly shine could change everything." Inspired by her colleagues' enthusiasm, Sarah began to outline ideas for their next steps. They discussed implementing longer assessment periods for all animals entering the shelter and developing robust training programs for potential foster families so they could offer better support to their furry charges. The team also talked about creating a community outreach program to educate local residents on responsible pet ownership and the importance of adopting from shelters rather than purchasing from breeders or pet stores. The goal was not only to find homes for dogs like Max, but also to advocate for systemic change within their community's perspective on shelter animals. As conversations deepened into plans and strategies, Sarah felt invigorated by her fellow volunteers' passion. They were all united by that same desire, to ensure every animal received an opportunity to show its true self without fear of being thrown away or forgotten. That evening, after all planning sessions concluded, Sarah took some time alone with Max outside in the evening air. She reflected on how far he had come since that fateful day when he was nearly lost forever. "You've inspired so much change," she whispered softly as he snuggled against her side. You showed us what's possible when we take time to believe in someone. Max looked up at her with those warm brown eyes filled with trust. In that moment, Sarah realized that this experience had taught her invaluable lessons about patience and advocacy, the importance of giving every being a second chance. As she watched him romp around happily chasing shadows beneath the stars twinkling above them, Sarah felt hopeful for what lay ahead. Not just for Max, but for all animals who might find themselves in similar situations in the future. This journey had ignited a fire within her, a commitment to continue fighting for those who could not speak for themselves. Together with her fellow volunteers and staff members now driven by purpose, she knew they would shape policies at their shelter that truly reflected compassion and care, ensuring that no animal would ever have to face the threat of euthanasia without being given a fair chance at love first. The transformation sparked by one sweet dog named Max marked just the beginning of a new chapter in their mission, one filled with hope, kindness, and endless possibilities ahead. As the days passed after Meet Max Day, the positive momentum within the shelter continued to grow. Families who had met Max during the event were captivated by his playful spirit and affectionate nature, and Sarah was overwhelmed with joy as she watched several interested adopters come forward. Each inquiry filled her with hope, further solidifying her belief that Max truly deserved a loving home. Finally, after a week of anticipation, the moment arrived when one special family decided to adopt him. They returned to the shelter, excited and eager to welcome Max into their lives. The couple had spent time reflecting on their interactions with him at the event, and they felt a connection that they couldn't ignore. Sarah stood nearby with her fellow volunteers, her heart racing as she witnessed the culmination of everything they had worked for. When the family approached Max's kennel, his tail wagged furiously as he recognized their familiar faces. It was as if he knew this was a special day for him. His eyes sparkled with excitement. Sarah watched as they gently opened the kennel door and coaxed him out. "Come here, buddy," one of the children called softly, bending down to offer Max a treat. He stepped forward eagerly, his playful nature shining brighter than ever. As they filled out the adoption paperwork, Sarah felt tears of happiness welling in her eyes, but also a bittersweet pang in her heart. She would miss Max deeply. After all, he had transformed from a scared dog into a beloved companion right before her eyes. However, she reminded herself that this moment was about so much more than just saying goodbye. It was about new beginnings for Max. Once everything was finalized, Sarah gathered everyone around for a small farewell celebration, a chance for all the volunteers who had rallied behind Max to share their stories and celebrate his journey together. Laughter filled the air as they reminisced about all those moments shared over the past week. Max's antics during fetch, how he learned tricks in record time, and even how he charmed everyone who walked through the shelter doors. Amidst happy tears and laughter, one volunteer stood up and raised a glass of water in honor of Max. "Here's to new adventures." Everyone cheered together as they celebrated not only Max's adoption, but also the profound impact this experience had made on each of them. "Remember," Sarah said softly once things calmed down slightly, "this is just the beginning of what we can accomplish together." The commitment to further change policies regarding long-term care for animals at the shelter resonated among them all like a shared heartbeat. Every effort mattered in advocating for all animals still waiting patiently for their second chances. After bidding farewell to Max and wishing him well on his new journey with his forever family, Sarah felt empowered by everything they had achieved as a team. The changes they enacted at the shelter would pave paths toward hope not only for animals like Max, but also countless others facing similar challenges. As she watched them drive away into their future together, a bright adventure unfolding ahead, Sarah sat quietly outside under blue skies tinged with golden sunlight streaming through trees lining the shelter yard. In that silence filled with promise and gratitude, she understood that every being deserved love, care, and a chance at happiness. With renewed resolve swelling within her heart and an understanding of how much can be changed through compassion combined with community effort, she vowed to continue fighting tirelessly for every deserving soul waiting in shelters everywhere. Not just dogs like Max, but every animal brimming with potential to experience life's joys again. This journey sparked by one remarkable dog would echo through endless lives moving forward, a lasting legacy of hope nurtured by kindness.